Aloha, will the Committee on Parks please come to order? It is 2:32. I would like to welcome committee members Cordero, Tolba, and Nishimoto. Before we start our meeting, I have some procedural announcements to make. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony remotely in person in the council chamber on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to 1 minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify in person will be called upon first. When the timer goes off, please conclude your remarks promptly. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. Once in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to remote. For remote testifiers, when your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. Then I will give persons who have not registered an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. Please utilize the raise hand feature in the Zoom to be called upon. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages in the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution, Section 1-13 of Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For all testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time may be necessary as allowed for testifier to provide English translation for their testimony. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, if any objections are noted, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's addresses, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of the meeting. Members, let's take up action item number 1. Resolution 2564 accepts the gifts of trees, materials, and supplies valued at $4,471 from the city from the Outdoor Circle Lani Kailua Branch for Ke'olu Drive Tree Planting Project. Here with us today, we have Ted Hayden, Deputy Director of Department of Parks and Recreation. Please proceed, Deputy.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair and Chair members. Ted Hayden for Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation is very happy to accept the donation of trees and materials from the Outdoor Circle Lani Kailua Branch in our efforts to beautify and create additional cooling for Kailua. I'm available for questions if you guys have any.
Council members, are there any questions for the deputy? Okay, well, Mr. Hayden, we've tried to take it easy on you, so I have some questions for you now. In this resolution, it says that there's a package of roofing nails. What exactly are we doing with the nails and the trees?
I believe the roofing nails are used to help secure because they use the posts and the bags to hold in the water and the soil. So the nails are used to secure those to the posts.
That was just a fun question. I wanted to make sure you knew what was going on in this resolution. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
We'll now proceed to remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Members, I am recommending that Resolution 2564 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Let's move on to item number 2. Agenda item number 2, Resolution 2565 accepts the gift of a Paragon ceramic kiln valued at $8,650 to the city from Cocoa Head Potters of Cocoa Head District Park. With us, we have Ted Hayden, Deputy Director, DPR.
Good afternoon again. Ted Hayden for Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation wants to thank the Cocoa Head Potters group for their donation of the kiln for Cocoa Head District Park.
Council members, do we have any questions for the deputy? Mr. Hayden, I have a question. How many of the parks have a kiln?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm asking all the tough ones.
Yeah. Try and get my knowledge up. I am not 100% sure on that one, sorry.
No, that was a good answer. If you don't know, you can say that, that's fine. I was just wondering, because I don't think I have any kilns at my parks.
Okay.
So that's very awesome. I think if they're doing ceramics, more power to them. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
We'll now proceed to remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. The chair recommends that Resolution 2565 be reported out for adoption. Any discussions, any objections, any reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Let's take up agenda item number 3. Resolution 2589 accepts a gift valued at $5,692 to the city from Le Pua'ala Queer Histories of Hawaii for the preparation and installation of a site marker at Queens Surf Beach, Waikiki, honoring Hawaii's diverse LGBTQ+ Mahu communities of the past, present, and future. Members, we have a posted CD1 to the resolution, which I submitted. For your information, the summary of amendments is listed on the agenda addendum. With us, we have Ted Hayden, Deputy Director, DPR.
Good afternoon, committee. Ted Hayden for Parks and Recreation. We want to thank Le Pua'ala Queer Histories of Hawaii for their donation of the marker and all the work that they're doing to preserve the history of the LGBTQ community in Hawaii.
Council members, are there any questions for the deputy? Do you know if this is going to be near where we approved, kind of where Kumuhina and them were working on? Is it going to be in that same area?
So it'll be, if you're looking at the aquarium from the street, it'll be off to the right. That first large tree, there's a kind of a planter of bricks in the ground, and so it'll be within that area.
Okay. Thank you very much for the specification. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
We'll now proceed to remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you so much. We'll have a question from Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Hi, Deputy Director Hayden. I have a question relating to gifts in general. May I ask the process, or who is dedicated to processing these gift requests within the Department of Parks and Recreation?
Director Thean will take your question.
Aloha, council members. Laura Thielen, Director for the City and County Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm going to incorporate you guys in our orientation and training. You're doing such a great job. The gifts that come into the department, it tends to be the recreation staff for that park or facility who will take the lead, and then they will work with our office by the director's executive assistant, currently Dori Amano Mitsui. Part of her role is to be a liaison with the council, and so we would work with them on the final resolution and submitting that to the council.
Thank you. That's great to hear, because I do see that, there's one from January, and just how long certain gifts take. Is there a process to vet the different gifts to each park?
Generally not. What may happen is that as you know, if the gift is below a certain value, we submit a quarterly request to the council based upon ordinance. And if it is above that value, we would submit it at the next meeting. Sometimes there may be delays in that we need some additional information for the resolution from the gifter to be able to put that in and to finalize it and get that to the committee. But
okay, understood. And then for has there ever been gifts that have been rejected by particular parks? And is it because it doesn't fit, doesn't match electrical wise?
From my understanding, we tend to not reject any gift. What will happen is sometimes people get a little frustrated because they may have to wait, especially the ones that are below the certain value, in order to get onto the agenda. So we do not accept the gift. We don't take it into our possession until the council has voted to accept it, because in the unlikely event the council were to deny a gift and it had been in our possession, then there may be an issue with us taking it.
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. And what is that threshold of an amount that that you said it is?
For some reason, 2,500 is sticking in my head, but I thought the council may have raised that to 5,000.
Yeah.
I can double check that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Director, just to follow up, you're saying that 2,500 was the threshold, because this one is 5,000, the other one is 8,000, so anything over 2,500 has to have the resolution?
Excuse me, everything has to have a resolution because the council by charter is the only entity that can accept gifts for the city. What the council didn't want to have to get every single month if there was a small ticket gift. So I believe it was an ordinance, I'm looking at the Corporation Council, an ordinance that said gifts that were below the threshold, we would submit a quarterly report with all of the gifts that are below that threshold, and that would come in as one fell swoop for you folks to adopt. Anything above that threshold, we could submit it immediately as a resolution, so it would not have to wait for the next quarter report. We have had some discussion with some of the council members about the possibility of the council proactively saying that gifts for the following purposes up to a certain amount can be accepted, provided that the department file a report on a quarterly basis after the gift is accepted, and that we could list certain things like the kind of the standard support for summer fund programs and things like that, so that we could be a little bit more efficient, and the council could preemptively accept things in that category. So if there is interest, we would be happy to work with council members on legislation.
Yeah, that sounds great. We'll work with you on that, Director. Thank you. One more question, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Chair Tupola. I just had one follow-up question. So what about the time that it takes for the department, upon receipt, to then present it to the City Council?
Again, when somebody will approach us, so say the Cocoa Head Potters, because I know they had done a kiln, I think, years ago, they would talk to the park staff about saying that they wanted to do a gift. The staff would work with them and with our office on putting together the resolution. For that one, because it's above the threshold, we would submit the resolution. So ideally, we're working on that fairly expeditiously. Now, I have to confess, if someone were to walk into, say, the district park and say, I want to donate this, and they're coming in April and May, and we're on the cusp of getting everything organized for summer fun and things like that, and the staff is really focused on getting the new hires through the orientation and everything else, under that timing, it may take longer than what's optimal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That helps a lot. So anyone listening, we have a lot of parks that could accept gifts. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, any more questions? All right, seeing none. Seeing no questions, the chair recommends that Resolution 2589 be amended to the posted CD1 as identified in OCS 2025-0256 submitted by myself. Any discussions, objections, or reservations? The resolution has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Resolution 2589 CD1 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Okay, last item, number 4. We're going to go through committee's priorities, collaboration with the Department of Parks and Recreation. Members, for your information, the presentations are available online, Departmental Communication 236, 237, and 238. Right now, I'm looking at Communication 238. That's what's on the screen above us. And I think you do have a copy of it. This is my effort as Parks Chair to see what we can do as a committee to kind of come up with ideas of what we can do in these next few years together and goals that we can set to help the department as well as the Parks Commission succeed. So, for those who don't know, Director Thielen, Laura Thielen, is the Director of Parks and Recreation, but we also have a commission, and Chair John Leong is the board chair. We have various other members of it, and then of course we have our Parks Committee. So I'm going to try to see if we can't work more hand in hand together, because the Parks Commission has kind of a lot of ideas. They discuss a lot of things. The department as well has things, and I think as a committee, I want to support both of the things that are brought up in commission meetings as well as with the department. This slide shows the current, on Departmental Communication 236, there is a functional plan. We can go to the next slide. And it actually states mission, vision, model. So I just wrote out what the current mission, vision, model was in the 2019 functional plan. We can go to the next slide. So I wanted to make sure that as we move forward, and I talked to Director Thielen about this, that we're clear that a vision statement organizes and outlines the long-term aspirations of where we want to be. in the city and county parks. Our mission statement should focus on the present, and then, of course, our values as to what we value for our parks and for our communities. Next slide. So I wrote out a proposed vision and mission statement, and this is up for discussion, and as well, I think as we proceed forward and try to update or redo any of the standards or functional plan, I'm sure some of this can be vetted through that process. But I wrote down for the vision, provide safe and accessible parks, including programs that promote health and wellness, mental well-being, sense of community, and youth leadership. I wrote down as a proposed mission to ensure safe parks by clearly stating park rules, educating users, creating plans to enforce rules. Secondly, gather community feedback on the best use for and modifications at parks. And lastly, generate revenue for park beautification and maintenance. I'm not sure about you guys, but for me, right after crime, parks is like the next most frequent calls I get from people, what it looks like, what's happening there. So I just wanted us to be clear that if we can all get on the same page, we might be able to address some of this. Next slide. So I put down strategic planning over these next 4 years for the second term of Mayor Blangiardi that we could possibly work on establishing general park standards. So I did list Department Communication 237. It's this fat packet right here. It is roughly around, maybe a couple hundred pages, but it states park standards, and some of the standards are suggested, but I don't know if we've actually really implemented these. Secondly, we could identify the shortfalls of what we need in each district. You know, Director Thielen has been really good at identifying where there's discrepancies, like maybe some sides of the island don't have as much staff, some of them don't have as much garbage trucks, maybe one side of the island no more pool, but this side of the island has a pool. So kind of making sure that there's more parity and equality amongst the park users across the island is something that could be identified when we update the standards as well as the functional plan. Next. So for priority number one, and you know, I'm interested in hearing this committee's insight. For me, park safety is huge. Park safety means that people feel safe there. They want to bring their kids there. They feel like the equipment works, the bathrooms work, that, you know, they're not going to get harassed. And it's important because we want people to enjoy their time at the park where they can get physical and mental and social interaction. It also encourages greater usage and fosters a sense of well-being for the residents. We know when the parks are utilized more that actually there's way less crime and problems there. Next page. So for public safety, I listed down a few ideas. Of course, if you have more ideas, you can chime in, but developing and implementing ground maintenance standards, of course, with the help of the department, get buildings and improvement asset management schedules and budgets in place, adopt design guidelines that promote safety, update, implement security standards, get more parks lit at night, more security cameras. This was kind of talked about in our budget hearing. You know, Chair Dos Santos Tam said that he wanted more of these lighting and safety things at our parks. So hopefully our budget line items can reflect our support of these goals and objectives. Director Thielen's been doing a wonderful job at launching the Park Ranger program, identifying where we have high illegal commercial usage at the beaches. And then, of course, you know, working with us as a committee. I don't know if you guys are down for it, maybe doing a cleanup together at one of the parks that is like identified as something that, you know, maybe all of us as council members could put a shoulder in and help out. So for me, it's really big that we restore public spaces to the public. We really need the public to feel safe at our parks. Second priority, community feedback. You know, DPR does a wonderful job at meeting with the community members, and I'll shout out Kehau Pu'u because she was excellent at this. She came to almost all the subcommittee meetings at the neighborhood boards with me. I was shocked how involved she was and how well she really wanted to hear the community. But overall, their feedback is what's going to help us determine what we should do. Next slide. So I suggested that we gather feedback, that we revise the functional plan, we engage with volunteers, we execute changes, and that we preserve history. I don't know about some of you guys' parks, but I found documents from like 1999, 2002 that people still carry around, and they're like, what happened to this? How come no one built this? And you know, it's an old master plan. It should probably be preserved as history, but then how do we explain to the community, hey, so in the master plan, this is what happened and this is where we are now. So I think preserving history and keeping it on the DPR website so people know we're aware of it. You know, obviously there was a 1999 master plan for Kalailoa, but we can't use the 1999 plan in 2025, so we're redoing that master plan, which is why the money is in the budget. Priority number 3, revenue generation. It's super important that we talk about this. I'm glad that there's the sponsorship bill. There's just no way that if we don't specifically talk about revenue for parks that can stay in the parks budget, there's no way we can keep up with it. It is the department that needs but doesn't have as much, revenue generation coming in. So I suggested, of course, the director suggested some of these as well. Entrance fees, we do it at Hanauma Bay, but it's not at a lot of the other ones. Rental fees, many of the large-scale events that the city and county hosts at our beach parks, there is no charge for it. The permits are very nominal. Concession stands, sponsorships, donations. Next slide. So kind of to Councilmember, next slide. Councilmember Cordero's point, we have various ways people can give, right? You can adopt a park, you can give a gift, but we want to elevate that and move it into maybe sponsorship, maybe creating renewable energy at every single park. Every district park that has a roof should have solar on top of it, or maybe our parking lot, so that we're actually decreasing the electric bill that parks are paying. Lastly, one of the things I think that we need to pursue as a committee is talking about a park special fund. Next slide. The Park Special Fund hopefully will help us to keep funds within each of the parks, and director suggested that, some of the very highly utilized parks, maybe they have their own, because people might want to give if they know that their money will stay at the park that they love. They may not want to give if they think that it's going to go back to the general fund and they'll never see the improvements that they want to see. So, there's some weeding out and discussion that needs to happen, but the special fund could hold program fees, entry fees, park permit fees, leases, the transit accommodation tax, gifts, contributions, sponsorships. So I know that for the Kalailua Strip, the 300 acres, I just don't think we're going to get there if we don't get a sponsorship. It's a huge parcel of land. I'm sure we're going to need lots of help. So that's it. I just kind of wanted to outline for you guys what I was hoping we could accomplish over these next years. Yes, we'll continue to accept gifts in this hearing, but I was hoping we could maybe do a little bit more. So please read through this when you have time. The functional plan is a lot smaller than the park standards. But, if you turn to the park standards, there's a page that actually says that all of our parks should have a 5-acre minimum. I don't know if you guys know this, but people gift little parcels to the city all the time that are less than 5 acres, and a lot of times no one can even recreate there. It's suggested that we have, an equal amount of facilities on all sides of the island, but we don't have that. So I'm bringing that up because I think that it's a good start for us, that maybe if we're able to revise this, it's something that as a committee we can kind of say we did all together. So I will pause, and I will welcome up Director Thielen for any comments on the presentation.
Thank you, Committee Chair. This is it's very nice to work with your office on the presentation and the priorities. Many of the things that are in the presentation our department is working on, and we've been very grateful for the council's support, and we love the ideas that you have brought forward as well. The park standards that I think it's about 160 to 200 page long, was done back in about 2004. And it did have some recommendations, some of which were accepted, but many of which were not. And what we found is that a lot of the things that were not followed have created a significant amount of time needed on daily operations that take away from the time to do the core mission. So let me give an example. When it talks about parks should have a minimum size of about 5 acres, there are places where a mini park would be suitable, to have a nice place to sit down in the middle of, say, an urban area or along a bike path or similar areas. But there's a significant number of the park inventory that is under 1 acre. And a lot of these are in locations that aren't really meeting the public need and instead become more of a nuisance, a dumping ground, and something that takes park staff out of the parks that are used over to the other areas. And I think our demographics have changed a lot as well. And so revisiting those park standards would be helpful. The functional plan is something that in the charter, it's an aspiration to update that every 5 years. And so it's been well beyond 5 years. These are works, though, that are generally done by professional companies that come in to provide assistance. because a lot of our staff are there for the day in, day out operations. And that's the balance we're trying to find right now, is how to be planning for the future, which I think was not done for the last couple decades. And there was a lot of degradation as we just dealt with the day-to-day operations, but we can't pivot away from the day-to-day operations. So we're trying to juggle both, and we would like to work with you folks on, what would be the priorities, mutually between the administration and the council, and where necessary to provide the professional services support so that we could move some of these things forward.
Thank you, Director. And I'll just add in one other thought. She shared with you that there are parcels smaller than 1 acre, but on top of that, there are requirements for developers to set aside land for parks. And right now, sometimes they give the worst parts of the development to DPR, and they say, good luck, make a park there, whether it has electric lines going through it or, we can't even use it. So I think that's where we're at with the amount of park locations that the department is managing, is where are we utilizing all of our efforts, and whether or not that's a good use of our efforts if these are all small parcels that we're really just kind of defending. So I will pause and I'll let the committee members ask Director any questions, or we can discuss. Committee, any questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. I did have a question for the committee chair, but I guess since we have Director Thielen here, I'm really glad that we brought up master plans and being able to highlight that. You had a great response about it during the departmental budget briefings relating to the master plans, and based off of what the infrastructure and what rockfall management looks like in an area and what is possible. And I think maybe if there's a way, and now that we've been an age-friendly city for maybe 5 years or so now, if any master plans can be, I guess, amended to fit certain goals within our age-friendly cities, so that it doesn't have to be a whole, we're gonna, for example, for Salt Lake, we're gonna connect these two parks. That's not possible. So maybe if we just look at what has changed in age-friendly cities, like Tot Lot or senior equipment, maybe looking at a certain standard based off of all the different goals that the city has. Is that a possibility?
I think that's the type of thing that a functional plan would be very helpful for, because it's going to take a look at what are the needs of the various communities on Oahu, and what is the gap between what we have and what the needs are. So for example, we have, I think, about 220 ball fields, but we only have 18 regulation baseball-sized fields. So what the community really needs is larger fields. We have about 150 multi-purpose fields, but we only have a small number of full-size football fields, full-size soccer fields. And so what we have is a shortage and a real gap between the needs and what the community, what we have and what the community needs. Similarly for your age-friendly, it would be identifying how many parks have walking paths, because that's what a lot of the kupuna need in order to have a safe place to walk. They can't necessarily walk across the grass. So it can kind of identify in our inventory, it sounds pretty good. We have 305 parks. We have 5 community gardens. But of those, how many are above the certain size? How many provide walking opportunities that are safe? How many provide, for the larger physical needs for the areas? And what you'll find is that we actually do have a lot of gaps. That can help us focus on what is needed now. So when you're taking a look with, say, a developer and a park dedication, if we need a regulation-sized baseball field, providing us with that linear park, that has restrictions on either side, it's not going to be of value. It's not going to meet any of those needs. And so it helps the city, turn and have those discussions where opportunities arise, or the Clean Water and Natural Lands Fund. Can we then pivot and start to use some of those funds to fill this specific need in this specific region of the island that doesn't have that? And so that's where I think we want to be targeting, the demographic needs. We've had a lot of population shifts on Oahu over the last 20 years. And then if we could get on the same page of what is important to build out where, and what do we add into the already built places where it's lacking, then we can be more targeted with the limited resources we have. And I think that's where we want to be focused.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director. And I
Yeah, no,
guess,
it's great. I think everyone says it to us like, oh, there's not enough fields. And sometimes we're like, oh, yeah, we don't know. But I think clearly what she's saying is there's not enough fields. But there's a reason why there's this many fields, but only this many of the right regulation size. I also wanted to bring up that when Director Tashner talked about clean water, natural land, she literally said departments can apply for it. She said that they could qualify for some of the funds, and there's 70 million sitting in that. So I think we should really talk about what areas we think we might need that for, and then not just do a park standard revisitation, but also 4 or 5 action points from that. Because this standards document has tons of ideas, but I don't know if any of them were implemented. Councilmember Toba.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. I really appreciate you. I think we need more transparency. I think it's very revealing what you talked about, the same amount of people that live on this side of the island compared to the amount of people that live on our side of the island, which is about the same, and the unbalance. And, for the council members that gotta constantly, explain why our fields are the way it's because, we don't have enough parks. We don't have enough fields for kids. So I think, having a clear vision and being transparent in all of this will help us, especially on our side of the island, where people complain about every little thing but don't understand the challenges we face in creating these new things, even though it's written in all these documents that there's supposed to be some equity. But I appreciate you, really trying to work hard at being transparent and helping us, better explain. And I appreciate the presentation because our community needs to know, they need to know. I mean, a lot of promises made, nothing kept. And, I really appreciate your effort in really trying to bring that balance. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Nishimoto, anything? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to conclude, Director, that, the reason why I tried to make this with them, us, and the commission is I don't know if you guys listen to the Parks Commission hearings, but they talk a lot about maintenance. Oh, this bathroom, what are your maintenance schedule? And we're talking about it, but all of the things we're talking about need to equal a budget line item, an action step, and then, progress. I think there's so much written to what Councilmember Toba said that I read that I was like, it was written, but again, nothing was followed up. So we're going to try to do some things together as a committee. I hope we can do a cleanup together. I'm going to work with the director on where and when we can do that cleanup. I also think that we should establish some of these things that director suggested, such as the Parks Fund, start some basic, redoing of the standards and of the functional plan so that we can have a better goal of where we need to go. And if what you're saying is right, which is our population has kind of shifted where there's tons more people on the west side than there used to be, then it's not us favoring the west side, it's the whole population now has a need for these types of recreational spaces. So, and we want to help the department succeed. So if that means that we have to be writing into law what developers are allowed to give as park spaces, or maybe writing into law that certain spaces that are way too small to maintain need to be taken out of DPR inventory so that they can focus on bigger needs that we have, those are the kind of things we need to do. So with that being said, any other Go ahead, Councilmember.
Oh, yeah, I just had a suggestion for our cleanups. Since there's only 9 of us, and to make it fair, we can rotate the districts, maybe?
Yes. I was thinking we're just going to do 1 cleanup a year, which would only equal 4, but we could do 9.
No. I mean, we could do it. I don't know, we could do it quarterly, maybe 3 times a year.
I was going to ask the director which one she thought needed the most love. I was going to ask her to identify once a year the ones that she's like, hey, all of you guys come and look at this park. Hey, because if it's not in my district, that's fine. But if it's the park that has the highest need, I think we should all go look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to lean on her to give us some direction on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, but you can't have a favorite child. Maybe we can do a lottery.
Okay, yeah, we'll do something. I know not everyone's a fan of cleanups, but it's fun, guys. We'll get volunteers. Okay, with that being said, I have no further business, and the meeting is now adjourned.